So now that we have kind of the basics going for us to where we can move around, do basically everything we need to do, I want to go ahead and start working on the ability side of stuff. So kind of a prerequisite before we get into that of, activating abilities on, say, pressing a key, for example, I want to go ahead and set up the inputs for it. So the input system. So I had mentioned when we were setting up the player controller using the input, where is it at? Ability system enhanced input component, we have some additional functionality kind of built in. One of those being bind ability inputs. And as you can see, it takes in a ability system, input ability system data asset, which we need to make, and then it binds to various functions, such as one that has been pressed, one that has been released, so on and so forth. So we need to make this data asset. Well, we actually already have the data asset. We just need to make it in Blueprint, but we need to expose a variable so we can, set it in here. So with our input section, we're going to go ahead and do a T object pointer of a U ability input. Wait, what was it called? U ability. Yes, this is not helping at all. U input ability system data asset. I was forgetting the word system. And this will be just, let's do ability input data asset. Or no, let's just do ability inputs. And for declare. So ability inputs. Then it's going to take in the object. So this is the one we want to call stuff on. And then we have our pressed and released functions. So these just take in gameplay tags. So we're basically going to have two functions. So void, let's do ability input pressed. And it's going to be a const f gameplay tag. And what was it? Let's do, we'll just call it tag. So we need to include the ability system, or sorry, not the ability system, the gameplay tag container.h. Now we can make a ability input released and use those. So a skg player controller, ability input pressed, and a skg player controller, ability input released. So now that we have those, we can simply create their definitions. And I'm going to go ahead and compile just to make sure everything is good to go. Alrighty, and it's just complaining because it does not want these to be passed via a const reference. So let's make them just normal passed by copy. Alrighty, so now that it built just fine, what we can do is we can go ahead and basically apply these to our ability system component. So what we can do is if we want to grab the ability system component from the pawn, so I ability system interface, let's do just ability system interface equals cast I ability system interface. And what we are casting from is going to be our get pawn. And I'm doing the exact same thing again for some reason. When get pawn, I keep forgetting, is a template function. So we can just cast it directly inside of the getter like so. Once we have it, we want to go ahead and grab the ability or the input ability system component. So if you input ability system component, which we need to include, ability system component equals cast you input ability system component, and we are casting from the ability system interface get ability system component. That was a little bit of a mouthful. Let's go ahead and move stuff where it needs to be. Like so. Actually, components with components, a little bit of OCD. Okay, so we get the ability system interface from the pawn we have possessed, and then we get the input ability system component, basically just from casting the get ability system component function that is a part of that interface. Once we have the ability system component, we can do search for pressed, and we have ability input pressed. And as you can see, it takes in a tag, which is the tag. Now we can copy and paste, and we have ability input released. So we can simply call ability input released. And that's it. So this is all that's going to actually be inside of these functions. Nothing's being set, so we can make these or mark them, better yet, as constants. And same thing with the look and the move. They can all be constant. It's not really anything that's needed, and naturally, okay, I guess it does not like that. You gotta be special, don't you? All right. So basically, what this is going to do is it's going to iterate over all the ability system inputs that we set up. All right, fine. I guess you don't want any constants. So basically, anything that we have defined in that data asset. So if we go ahead and do a quick look at it, you can see it takes in an array of F ability input actions. So ability input actions is simply a input action with a tag. So any tag or any ability that has an input tag, which is again a child of the input gameplay ability, any ability that has that matching input tag, it will go ahead and either activate it if it's not activated, and if it is activated, based upon if it's set to be canceled upon trying to activate it again, it will go ahead and what's the word? Go ahead and end the ability. And same thing, if you release that same input, it will fire off the ability input released, or it can automatically, end the ability. It just depends on what your settings are. So now that we have that, inside of our core folder, we're going to make a new one called inputs. Inside of here, I want a separate section for actions. And then here I want context, and I'm just preemptively doing this. And then here I want that data asset. So miscellaneous, data asset, search for input, ability system data asset, and I'm going to call it DA underscore ability inputs, and open that up so you can kind of see what I'm referring to. So if I add an entry, we can say assign jump to this tag test.stateTree. So any ability with the input tag test.stateTree that we have given to us that is not activated, when we press whatever key we assign to jump via a input mapping context, it will activate that ability. So that's all that has to go in there. We just need to go to our player folder, go to our player controller, and under ability inputs, simply set that data asset. So we can compile and save, make sure we can play without any issues, and we are good to go. So what we can do, basically, actually there's really nothing else to do at the moment, but we can just simply have well, in the future, we can make data assets, such as that interaction system that I was talking about, that when we, press F and release F, are going to fire off ability input pressed and ability input released. We can pass these along to the server, a bunch of others, just a kind of a bunch of cool stuff that'll make our lives a lot easier once we dive into it and it starts making sense. Because right now I'm just kind of speaking. So in the next video, we're going to actually start diving into these things and getting them up and going. So that's going to be all for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. If you like what I'm doing and you want to help support me, please make sure to subscribe. And if you want to help me out, my Patreon is linked down below as well.